me and Nini are like really close, and so we also had each other, and that I felt like we are, as far as our teaching processes, because we're so different. I am very type B, he's very type A. We look at things on two different sides of things. And so it's great when I can be like, this is what I'm thinking about, and hear what he has to say, and it sort of moves us both kind of this way, in terms of I was doing a lot less, he was doing a lot more, and we slowly sort of like worked through that to get, to a middle ground.
Welcome to the Choir Baton, a podcast designed to engage with people in stories, ideas, and inspirations stemming from choir. No other art form, no sport, no hobby, no business requires a group of people to execute a communal goal with just their voices. Join me, your host, Beth Philemon, as I interview guests who are singers, teacher-conductors, instrumentalists, and community members. Together, we'll ask questions, seek understanding, and share insight from our experiences in life and in choir. Hi, Choir Baton. It's your host, Beth Philemon, and I am so excited for you to listen to this final episode trilogy that I have made with Nini and Lamar. I have followed their journey from the beginning of student teaching, after student teaching, and now to the end of their first year as school teachers. If you have not heard the previous two episodes with them, I encourage you to go and check them out either now or after you listen to this episode. There's amazing insights into the journey of these two men. Simultaneously, I also interviewed two of their cooperating teachers last summer. And if you are going to be a student teacher or are going to be a cooperating teacher or just interested in reliving what that journey was like for you or what it is like, I encourage you to go check out those episodes with Peter Haley and Stephanie Madsen. In fact, Peter Haley is headed back to school this fall to get his DMA, and we are so excited for Peter. In this episode, we talk about a range of things, and we conclude with talking about what the world is like as a teacher right now, not just in regards to COVID, but in regards to race. Nini is Asian from Burma, which you hear me ask him probably in one of the ways in which you're told to never ask someone where they're from. I don't think I said the horrendously phrased, "What are you?" I hope that I didn't. But again, this is just a real conversation that I have with these guys. And as I seek to learn how to show up better and be more informed, I make mistakes all the time. But I continuously try to show up and never make the same mistake twice. Although the guys informed me in this episode that half of the things that I asked Nini in regards to where he was from and what Og standed for, which is his middle name, I asked him in the first episode. I don't know how much I can claim ignorance and old age versus I just probably should have gone back and listened to the first episodes. Again, nonetheless, you can listen to them call me out on that at the end of this episode. But we also talk about Lamar as a Black man, as a teacher as well, and what it is like for them as new teachers going into the classroom and how they talk about race and diversity and differences, how that shows up for them as well. It's a really real conversation between three friends, and at times I have to admit, I think I sometimes forget we're even recording. So just be excited for that glimpse into conversations with three people that love each other and love choral music and love just sharing an inside glimpse into the journey. A couple things before we tune on into this episode, and that is this week I am announcing a free introductory course into the singer course that Choir Baton is going to be offering. And this is an opportunity for you to see how I'm going to be teaching this singer course. But I have to tell you, if you are a choir teacher, educator, conductor listening to this, the singer course is not for you. You can take it, but it is really for the greater adult community of learners that want to continue knowing, learning, growing as a choral musician. And I have been planning for the release of this course since January. And I think now more than ever, we need this course for choir singers because there are a variety of examples of to how people can get plugged into choirs or how they can't get plugged into choirs. Some community choirs have opportunities for singers to engage amidst the social distancing era in which we are in. And some choirs don't have the opportunity for them. They don't have that bandwidth for people to be engaged in communal music making. And my hope is that this course provides an opportunity for them to do so, while also providing an outlet for people to learn more about how to read choral music and also why we read choral music like we do. The majority of our community choral structures are set up in a rehearsal-based type setting and not one in which we have the opportunity to teach a lot of music theory. And what I have found is that without that consistency of time for us to teach singers like we do in an everyday classroom experience, it's hard for our community singers that are a part of choirs to always grow, although they do, but it's harder for them to grow in full understanding of what and why. Additionally, it's harder for people that have never read choir music to be engaged in a chorus that you are solely expected to read chorus music for. Now, I have another episode coming that begins to unwrap a lot of these things for you. But in the meantime, I did want to tell you about that course and that if you get the Choir Baton email that you can sign up for if you do not already receive it, the sign up for that email is linked in the show notes, and you can also get the link to the free introductory Choir Baton Singer Course through receiving that email. Woo, that was a lot of details. The last thing I want to tell you is that we are amidst the final days of this month's Choir Baton Teaching Membership mini course, which is about sense of self. And I just really want to encourage you to, if you are a Choir Baton Teaching member, which you can be for a month-to-month fee, or you can also sign up for a yearly fee, but if you are a teaching member, I really encourage you to take this course. I know that many of us are struggling with what does the future of choral music look like, and what does that mean for me and my identity and my dreams and goals? And this course was not designed to give you the answers, but to give you ideas in which for you to think about so that you can find solutions that fit within the framework of your goals as a person and as a teaching member. And finally, a big thanks again to you for being a listener of the Choir Baton podcast. I am so honored that you continue to show up week after week, listen to the different episodes, engage with the Choir Baton community. And this is such an honor for me to be able to share friends, mentors, strangers, new friends, everyone that is a guest on the Choir Baton podcast, for me to share these real and authentic and mildly edited conversations that I have with you. And I say mildly edited because I'm not cutting things out. What you see is what you get. And I just want to encourage us to continue to grow together, particularly amidst the changes that we are engaging in as a choral community. And now to my episode with Myin and Lamar. All right, here we are. It's like the end of an era. Or maybe it's just yes, exactly, the trilogy. Choir Baton listeners, welcome back to the most featured guests on the Choir Baton podcast, Mr. Myin and Lamar Davis. Welcome back, guys.
Hi.
Thank you so much. Great to be back.
So if you are unfamiliar with these names, you can keep listening, of course, to this episode, but make sure that you go back and check. Like we said, this is a part of a trilogy, and I interviewed the guys. I act like there's like, you know, me and my team, you know, that's when I listen to too many podcasts that's how people talk. Although now, anyways, and interviewed these guys before they started student teaching last January, and then was it January? Yeah, it was right before you started, I think. Yeah.
I think so.
I think actually you guys were the second episode of the Choir Baton podcast. And then we followed up with you at the end of that school year to see how it went. And then I followed up with 2 of your cooperating teachers. And now you have finished your first year as choir teachers. And oh, what a first year to be a teacher.
What a first year. Oh, man.
So I know we'll get there. We have so much to talk about, and I scheduled a longer amount of time to talk with you guys because I know that we could probably talk all day. But my first question is just give us a brief overview, if this is the first time people are tuning in to hearing you guys, of your name. They both graduated from Wingate University as music ed majors, and then just give us a little background into the school you're teaching at, because I don't think listeners have heard about the environment that you're teaching in. Perfect. All right.
You want to go first? For me.
Yeah, you can go first.
Okay. So I'm Lamar Davis. Like you said, I just graduated last year. I'm officially 1 year out. Wow, that's crazy. From Wingate, and I currently teach high school course and theater at West Rowan High School. It's I wouldn't say small, we have about 1,000 students, but it's a very rural school. We are FFA strong, go FFA, go all things future farmers. And it's actually a newer theater program that I've taken on, and has been going slow, but you know, it's there. And the choir itself has had following a teacher who was there for 9 years and has built up great singers. And so now I've been excited about the fact that we've really dived into literacy, and we've dived into all things understanding music, not just making music or performance, but you know, understanding what we're reading. All in all, I think it's a great group of kids. I love the diversity at the school. It's one of the things that made me choose that school, was how diverse it is. And yeah, sort of an overview, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess we can get more deep into it, but I do want to ask, since we talked about it right there, like when you say diverse too, what does diverse mean, particularly when you say rural?
Well, for a school, for me, you know, it kind of reminds me of the school I went to high school at, in that when you look at the community itself, you know, there are farmers, there are what I guess Southern people would call very country land. But then when you go into the school and you see how many students of color, they have students that are from Hispanic backgrounds, as well as the LGBT students, I think that the array that is there, and that has a sort of yearning for arts across the board, whether they're white or people of color, I think is really sort of what intrigues me and what I enjoy about teaching. That's what I look for. I look for diversity, because I don't know, I learned, I should say, through my 4 years of field experience and just being in different schools in college, I learned that non-diverse settings are not where this young Black teacher really fits in and can do his best work. I connect with the students better. I can develop trust, and I can understand some of their situations better. So that's what I typically look for.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, I have actually some more thoughts and questions on that. Maybe we'll circle back by them, or you and I will continue off, because I want to pick your brain. Nini, tell us about your gig.
Hi, my name is Myin. Like Lamar, I graduated from Wingate last year, music ed, and now I am teaching at Jamestown Middle School in Jamestown, North Carolina, which is right outside of Greensboro, North Carolina. 6 through 8, we are a Title I school. It's a very big Title I school. We have over 1,000 students or so, and I teach all chorus. I teach 6 classes every day. And on top of that, I do have a top ensemble, audition ensemble, that meets once a week after school on Fridays. And they do really, challenging 3-part music. My school is very diverse, both, race and socioeconomic. And yeah, it's lots of fun, a lot of things going on. And I followed a teacher who's been there for like over 10 plus years. So it is a very strong program. They are very strong in terms of singing and also music literacy. So I kind of got lucky in a way, but at the same time, there are a lot of things I had to do with the students, in terms of building relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's jump in first and talk about what is like the biggest thing that, if Nana were listening to this, or even Kenny, which those are their collegiate professors, what is the thing that they told you when you were going through your stuff that you were like, yeah, whatever, I'm not going to do that. And then you got into it and you're like, oh crap, that was like, I wish I'd listened. They were right.
Oh man. Well, I don't know if I said this in the last episode that we did, but I remember we had just finished our student teaching, and Nana was, taking us out to celebrate the fact that we were done. And we sat around or whatever. And it's also kind of weird for me to feel like I can call her Nana now, just because,
It's actually just realizing that you said that. And I was like, I said it, maybe. But we all sometimes call our teachers by their first names. Anyways, yeah.
Yeah. When they're not around. But
good old Edie.
Yes. I told her, I was like, I feel like I owe you a dinner at a steakhouse with the top wine on me, because of how much I'm gonna be honest, when it came to Dr. Nana Wolfhill, and I was probably her biggest opponent in the classroom to a lot of things. I was like, you're not getting me, you're not understanding me, I'm not understanding you, we're just like at it. It never, honestly, oddly enough, it didn't happen in conducting. I think because we both sort of share the same brain with that, but when it comes to methods courses, I don't know, we were just always at ends. And so afterwards I was like, I owe you so much, because the idea behind prep and planning and thinking, the way she thinks through things meticulously was something that I had to really get on board with, because I was like, I'm not going to write down all these steps when I get into a classroom. That's just not it. I'm going to be me. I'm going to flow. I'm just going to, be off the dome, because that's how I work. That's how I roll. That is going to work. It's fine. It's high school. They're going to roll with the flow. No, especially when you're in your own job and there's not a student teaching mentor there to save you or talk you through the steps of the day, and you're really thinking about this crap from scratch in your house by yourself. You really, I ended up being more, I was like, I really do have to sort of turn on my Wolfhill brain, I call it, and just think through every single thing, and then overthink some things and play it out. I was driving into work with whatever's playing on the radio, playing out the lessons in my head. It was more intense than I think I expected, honestly.
Yeah. There's something about when that door shuts and you're like, this is my classroom.
Yeah.
I still remember that first feeling, man. Whew. Yeah. What about you, Nini?
So I'm the opposite of Lamar. I feel like Dr. Wolfhill and we are a very similar person in terms of planning and just thinking things out and being very organized and being meticulous with certain things. So I'm not gonna lie, I feel like I was maybe over prepare, when I started. But then, I realized that, I was doing way too much, for like the first few months, I was staying at school until about 5:30, 6 o'clock, and we get out at like 3:30. So, and, I will also come in very early, I will be there by like 7 o'clock. So, I had to learn and adjust that, this is middle school, this is not college,
Yeah,
and, take a step
absolutely.
back, what you're doing, it's all right, like what you just said, you're on your own, that was the biggest thing for me, is that, okay, like, am I doing this right? Like, because you're the only person that's in there, that knows, what is right and what is wrong. So just a lot of, taking, time to really think about, what you really need to do and what you don't really need to do, because I only have 45 minutes and they go by very fast, for middle school, while, still keeping them engaged.
Yeah. Well, you touched on such a great point there, Nini, that I think is one of the first things to dive into about this. And you experienced it a little bit in student teaching, right, where you've been used to this collegiate sound, and now
Mm-hmm.
you're moving back to middle school and high school settings. And I firmly believe that the age group doesn't matter, the level with which you can do. I've taught at high schools that I have taught lower level musicianship and voice building skills too than I've taught at a middle school, and vice versa. But just like developmentally, the middle school age gap is different. And like, they might be able to sing stuff that high school kids can sing, but like vocally they also can't too. So just that shift of a gap, how did you work through that? Did you experience that big mind shift of like, oh, like you said, this isn't college anymore?
Right. Definitely. For me, my seventh and sixth grader, their classes, I have three different voice parts, soprano, alto, baritones. For the sixth grader, it's a little bit easier. They're still in their treble voices, and we could do parts, two parts or unison. So that was pretty easy to me. But especially with seventh and eighth graders, a lot of the boys, they're going through puberties, and also the girls, with their voice changes. I find that it was very difficult, working with the baritone section, especially. Even though I was a male teacher, it was hard for me to even demonstrate and even explain some of them stuff. Like physically, they're not there. So I have to be very careful with the repertoire that I picked out. So instead of for like the seventh grade, what I instead of focusing on like the if you're a soprano, alto, baritone, I just mix them all of them up, and said, okay, you're gonna be part one, you part two, you part three, no matter what were their their voices were.
Right.
And I just had them singing, and I feel like that worked out pretty okay. For them to listen and just work with their listening to each other in their group. But I'm not gonna lie, there were some times I didn't know what I was doing, to be honest. Especially with the changing voices. For the soprano alto, I use my falsetto to demonstrate for them, and it's not the best falsetto, but I can get through it.
Right.
And they have a lot of especially in eighth grade, they have very strong singers, who they just lead the group. But baritones, bless me,
Yeah.
it was a day by day struggle, but I had two very strong baritone singers, who helped me, tremendously, and I don't have them next year, so it's gonna be a whole another ball game. So yeah, I'm still learning, and it's gonna be interesting, but I'm up for the challenge.
Yeah. Several things that you said there. I just love is how vulnerable you are and saying like, I didn't know, and I wasn't good at this. And I love hearing people say that, because we all have that and particularly when we're talking about the male changing voice. And then to hear you I think that's also an unspoken thing we don't hear men talk about a lot, that it's hard for them to talk about or to teach the male changing voice. We expect for the men to teach the male changing voice, and then, and of course they can sing falsetto, so they can sing everything. And it's the women that really need to understand the male changing voice, or maybe that's just the narrative that I've picked up. But for you to say that, I think will resonate with so many male listeners as well. That's awesome. Yeah. What about you, Lamar? In regards to, you were coming in from someone that was also beloved, and we can talk about this with Nini too, because I know his teacher was. How was that transition coming in after a teacher that had been there for 6-7 years?
I ended up always referring to it as walk through fire, in that you are purposefully just going through this pit of fire that you're going to get burned, they're going to get burned, but you got to get through there to get to whatever's on the other side, the beach, whatever, right? And so to me, so I was literally like going into school, work day, walk through fire, because it was hard. I remember the first day coming into the top group, the honors course, and then sitting down, sitting all over the place, because that's what they were used to.
Yeah.
So yeah, coming into my honor course and seeing them just sitting all over the place, talking. I had to start the class on the first day when, as a first year teacher, your nerves are shot. They're like, here we go.
Right.
And for me, I couldn't get out of my head the fact I was like, I'm 22. Some of these children are only 3 years younger than me. Like, that was something that just stayed in my head for whatever reason. And I was constantly thinking, I was like, I'm not that much older. They're going to notice. Right. And so, I don't know. I think I was very timid with that, understanding that I'm not their teacher. They're needing their teacher. First thing I say, morning, everybody. Name is Mr. Davis. Where is Snyder? Sorry, I didn't mean to say that, but where is he? And
right. We can bleep that out. Maggie, we bleep that out for us.
Thanks, Maggie. And so I was like, he's not here anymore. I'm your new teacher, which he had told them, but I think some people just wanted to
hear the name.
Right. And
hear the name.
So yeah, and it thus begins, the battle for attention, the battle for to be heard. I lost, I think, the group started at 38, and I lost 10 to 28, and eventually I had 25 by like the end of August, because they were just not about Mr. Davis's choir. And I was like, that's okay. I'm going to let them go. I'd rather hone in with the few that are here.
Right.
At that point, I remember I got my numbers that summer, and they were like, they're really low. You only have like 12 in your beginning choir. And I was like, that's fine. I'd rather build up a strong base before I get multiple numbers. This is my first, not just my first time here, but my first job, period. Like, I need something small and intimate to work with first before I think about teaching the masses. So that, we lost a lot of singers. And I think it was a power struggle for me and the juniors and seniors, in terms of they know how their choir works, so they're going to tell me. And I think at that point, I really had to think about my line, because like I said before that, I love relationships and I love building strong relationships with students. There's a time when you have to build those strong relationships, and then there's a time that you have to show them who's the adult in the room. And I really had to figure that out. And that took time, because, and not getting in my car and taking all that pressure home with me. I'm not a big crier, so like I don't have good crying stories where I like cry things out. I probably should have cried a few times, to be honest with you. Just being blunt honest with you. I probably should have cried.
Yeah. It's okay. I probably cried enough for us in my first 5 years of teaching that you're good. So.
Just spread it out between the three of us. That works.
Yes.
But no, honestly, it was, I think I knew that it just took time. I remember telling my my middle school operating teacher, I would say, I'm waiting. And he was like, yeah, you just gotta wait until they graduate. I was like, I don't know if that's what I'm waiting for. And he was like, oh yeah, well, wait till the sound's like, I don't know if that's what I'm waiting for. I'm not going to tell you what I'm waiting for. I have to wait. I have to be here. I have to show up, and we're waiting. Something will happen. Something will click. And eventually, I think things will fall in line. I don't think it's something that can be fixed overnight. It's something that I just have to wait and let time fix. Like the more they see that I come back, and the more that they see that I'm not giving up, and the more that they see I'm still going to push them, no matter if they cuss me out today or if they cuss me out tomorrow. That does not change the fact that this is where we are, both of us, me as a teacher and you as a student who still loves choir, because if you didn't, you'd be one of the 12 that left in the first day. Like, you're here for a reason. So whatever it is you got to fight through, I'm going to let you go through that moment, have that moment of emotional release. And then we're going to get back together and we're going to make music, because that's what I'm here for. And that's what you're here for.
Right. I mean, that's huge, right? It is the people that are in the room. And once you also have that moment with them, it can really change things. And how then do you also honor the training that they've had before? Because that also ultimately brought them and kept them in choir to some extent for them to be there. It's hard, right? Like, it's hard for any of us that are coming in after someone, I think, acknowledging the teacher that's been there before, but there's also other kinds of teachers that can linger when you leave a position, and what's the right way to handle that is really hard. How was that for you, Nini, in that setting, coming in after someone that had been there, beloved, and caveat, right? You student taught with her.
No, I did not.
So that's not true. I made that all completely up in my brain.
No.
Drink my coffee.
So, just a little bit of information about the teacher before me. She was the North Carolina Middle School Teacher of the Year, and also the Country Music Teacher of the Year, like nationwide, something like that. So,
beloved
homegirl is, yes. So like, I'm like, especially with my 8th graders, like, they hated me. Like, it was hell.
Right.
Like, she did not tell them that she was leaving. It was very last minute. So like the first day, when all the kids were walking in, they were like, "Who are you?" So I had that talk with them, since the first day. I was like, "Hey, she got another job. Sorry, I'm here. We're gonna do our best in this transition." So I was very stern with them, and I was pretty hard on them, because that's what we were taught, and at school, is to be hard until about winter break. Right. So I was very hard on them. I had my difficulties, with them. So I had a few students, who volunteer, and they were like, "Hey, can we help you? Like, do you know this warm up? Like, we did it this, like, can we teach that to you? We want to do that." At first I was like, "No, we're going to do my warm ups." But then eventually I was like, "Okay, come on, teach it to me. Yeah. I'll learn it too." So, and
that
was
is
really
so
nice because,
amazing. I mean,
because
that's so
they
amazing.
Taught me a lot. Right.
What an opportunity
I was
build.
Like, right. So I had a lot of those moments,
Can we stop there real quick? Because hold on, I want to unpack that. Hold on, I want to unpack that for two shakes. Okay. Okay, so once you made over, like, you were like, "Okay, I will let them teach me this warm up. I don't want to come up with a new warm up today anyways." Right. Not that I'm sure you ever felt that way. Actually, no. This is where I'm like listening to both of you talk, and I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm so Lamar." Like, our brains are so similar, and but I know, like, anyways, but once you finally were like, "Okay, I'm going to let them teach one," like, how'd that make you feel? Were you like, "Crap, why didn't I do this sooner?" Or were you glad that you waited a little bit and established a sense of ownership?
both. I'm like,
Well, that
crap,
doesn't
like,
help. I'm just kidding.
like, a part of me was like, dang, how did I, like, I'm like, how did I not know that warm up? And number two, I'm like, okay, like, this is actually cool. Like, they were doing like 2-part, 3-part warm ups. I was like, okay, like, I'm like over here, but like,
Yeah.
so we got there, but like, it was great, like they can run the class without me, I'm not afraid to say, but they were really good, especially like their 8th grade. Um, but it's just a learning curve, it's just some part of me that, I just have to let go, and, nothing I can really do about it. And, I'm just like, okay, like this is, you know, just letting go if that, you know, le- uh, long as if I do that, and if I get another part of them, giving me, that, something that they had. So I just went with it, and it worked out really well. And after winter break, they started requesting a lot more. I think that's when they got really comfortable with me. And they were like, hey, can we sing this piece, or can you look at this piece, like we sang it last year, but we never got to perform it. So I did pick out a piece for them that they really really wanted to sing. So I was like, okay,
Right.
like that's fine. So which is great.
Yeah, I love that. Did you guys notice this shift in school today versus what you remembered from high school? Did it feel different to you being on this side of things, A, as the teacher, and then B, just because the world has changed in 4 years?
I feel like
Yes.
for me with high school, and I mean, I don't know, middle school might be different. But for me, as far as high school, it definitely feels like, to me, it felt like the world or their world was more open in school. And by that, I mean, I don't mean it in a good way or in a bad way either. I think it's the idea of, I mean, everybody's so on their phones now. I felt like, to me, they brought so many more of their situations, good or bad. They brought their, good moments with family, good moments with friends. They brought bad moments with friends, and they brought bad moments with family. I felt like a lot more of that was brought into the classroom. And more so than I feel like was the case for personally my high school. I can't speak for everyone's high school, but for my high school, I feel like it's definitely more the case in that I felt like before it was easier to keep things, if there was friend stuff that stayed in the lunchroom and in the hallways and on the playground or wherever, and the family stuff that stayed at the home and at the friend's home and at the church. Whereas now all of those places just follow into the classroom. That's my take on it.
No, I would agree. And I think that makes it harder, right? And it's hard, especially too, when you've spent so much time on music stuff. And I think we'll see this even more in our curriculums as we embrace, no matter what subject area, the socio-emotional learning of a child, and just of people in general. But I mean, yeah, I would completely concur with that and really experience the same. We would never talk about things that were going outside. For so long, there's been this narrative that choir is your safe place. And you just leave it at the door. And it's all about the music. If you can't see me, listeners, I'm air quoting these things. And I don't think that's the case anymore, for better or worse.
Right. And I feel like, I feel like some of the moments that everyone wants to remember in choir are the moments when something touched them emotionally, or they had that moment where they could sit in the teacher's office and talk about this, that, and the other. That's why they became your favorite teacher, because the chorus teacher would listen to whatever it was. And I feel like I just listened to your episode with at Choir Campbell, and she talked about how that was something that kids could come to her about. And it's like, I feel like we're at a time where that's what students really are looking to their school teachers for, especially in choir, because so much of every other part of their life is so public and so on their phone. I mean, I had kids that were coming and telling me something about a student that they would only know because that student posted something, or that student deleted the pictures of the boyfriend, you know? And so It's like, and then that student would come in and we're all like, we're here for you. We love you. We're sorry that this breakup happened. And it's like, I only know this because of my other students, and they only know this because of something that was posted. It's like that turmoil or that problem in that child's life is so public now. Yeah.
That's huge. What about you, Nini? Did you discover like any, did it feel very different to you going back as a teacher in middle school than what you remembered as a student?
Very much. Like when I was in middle school, you know, we didn't have laptops or, you know, access to technology, you know, those sort of things. And, you know, with my middle schoolers, you know, all of them have a laptop, you know, all of them have access, you know, to all this great resource. And also I feel like, you know, when I was in middle school, you know, it was a lot more relaxed, more easy, more fun. I feel like nowadays, you know, students are pressured,
right?
You know, or they have high expectations. You know, they're very tired. You know, their brains are fried up. You know, from their classes. You know, all of them are under hurry about, you know, being successful and getting good grades. And, you know, I have to let them know that, hey, don't worry about that. You know, you're going to be fine. You know, I'll talk about it, you know. And that's another thing, you know, they're not afraid to talk about, you know, certain, you know, topics, you know. You know, back in my day, I would be scared to, you know, say something, you know, with my teacher, you know, like relationships, sexuality, you know, this, that, you know. But nowadays, they're just like, you know, they're just having this full-on conversation right in front of me. I was like, oh, you know,
absolutely.
Okay, you know, I'm like, how do I react to that? You know, how do I respond back to them? You know, I try my very best, you know, to care for them and, you know, to have interest in them and, you know, to make them feel comfortable that, you know, when they come in here, you know, they don't have to worry about those things. And, you know, we are all in this together. And that is something that I try to do with them, you know, every day. I don't know, you know, middle school is a hit or miss, you know.
Depends on the
all
minute.
Over the place. Yeah. They're all over the place, you know. But yeah, it's lots of fun.
Well, you both like kind of bring this to the perfect entry point of what we're experiencing now and what you experienced several months ago of like, okay, now we are all going online. And in fact, listeners, like I literally was going to go to Nini's class on a Friday or Thursday, and schools were beginning to shut down. I was a little wary about even like going into schools. And then you got, and then that was it. Like you're the end of, no one could have experienced that or expected that experience is what I meant to say. So tell us a little bit about just overarching thoughts, if you would like to, about how you have been impacted by coronavirus as a first-year teacher.
I feel like
I think that was the sentiment of like a million
that
teachers
was it.
right there too. I was like, okay, and next question.
I mean, I feel like they always, the thing about first year teaching that I think why a lot of people are like, oh, get through the first year is because there's so much uncertainty, not even uncertainty, but reacting, not even pre-acting, but reacting. Like something happens and you have to react because this is your first year, your first lap around the track. You are not used to that rock being there, so you are, recovering basically from realizing it. And that, I mean, it's all year, I feel like. So for that, I honestly feel like I would have been a little more in a mind cluster if it wasn't my first year. Does that that might sound really weird.
It makes
but
total sense, because you find that the most, I'm like bursting in here, but the most like calm teachers are those teachers that have been there for 20 years and they're like, oh, it's the 7th day of the 8th week. Today we do this, check. Or like, I'll never forget, you get, and I don't know if y'all had this, like their end of the year checkout lists. I will never forget getting mine my first year and being like, and I would like walk to a teacher next door and they'd be like, well, I've done everything. I just have to do this last little bitty thing to check that stuff. And I'm like, and
oh my God.
I mean, yes, exactly. And then you realize by like the second year, you're like, oh, they knew that was coming. Like no one tells you about end of the year checkout lists really, but like they're a massive, massive thing. And like, and so I think that is where it makes perfect sense. But you also have been most equipped to be learning online. You have the most experience of anyone in the building of technology and how to learn online too. So that influences it.
Oh my gosh. Going back to what you were saying, we got to like the last staff meeting in the year and they were like, make sure all your PDs are in frontline. I was like, we were supposed to be putting PDs in frontline. Nobody told me this. I was like, what? So like, I went to conference in November. That's not in there. Can I still put that in there this late? I was like, someone help me. I'm going to be honest with you right now. I still don't think that they're in there. Like to this moment, I have to go back and check.
I'm not even sure if I have hours within that. I'm just like, whatever, let me teach.
Exactly. But
don't do that. Let's say, listen, remember now, wait, let's pause for a second. What did I just say? Lamar and I are aligned. Nini, are all of your PDs like perfectly implemented in your PD tracking?
I think for us, I think beginning teachers, I don't think we have to put it in yet. So
okay. Yeah, he knows the date that he has to start putting them in and has put 3 reminders in his calendar. Versus Lamar and I are like, wah!
Yo, I'm in the classroom. What? Oh, that is so me.
I'm like, I can't tell you about the PDs, but I can tell you like what warm-up we did on this day and how we're going to use it for this and how it's going to work like that. And none of it is written down, but it's all in my head.
Right.
Yeah, I know. Oh, well, I can't tell you that, but Susie is doing great in class. Her grade is up. That's great. I just sat down and talked with her.
And did you know that this happened to her mom the other day? And at lunch, she had that food, which made her reminisce. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And she's dating Mark. I'm kidding.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
But I think that sort of helped because it's like it's like first year, another thing's being thrown at you. But I will say that while I am a young teacher, I feel like there's this added idea that because I am the young teacher, 1, I know all the technology things, and 2, I am going to be perfect at this online learning thing. And those things couldn't be farther from wrong. I am good with technology, yes, but the idea that I knew what I was doing with this, especially since it happened right when we finished 39 weeks. So literally the beginning of the quarter was the beginning of online learning. So we had a little bit of an easier transition than some, and so we weren't finishing a quarter before it started. But I think for me and my, I learned how much of a in-person teacher I am, and to where this was really hard. And this was something that I wouldn't say I was very successful at, if I'm being completely honest, in that I didn't know what assignments I was doing. I didn't know I turned to people like you and I was like, what should I be doing? How should I be doing this digitally? You and the membership, of course, and my cooperating teachers. You talked to Stephanie Match, and I was texting her. I was like, what are you doing? Can I steal this assignment from you? And I mean, and I think we had a PD from a guy who wrote a book. I can't remember the name of the book, about innovation. He's from Canada. He did a PD for our county on a webinar, and he had a slide that I screenshot, and it was the back of my phone for a little bit because I had to remind myself. He was like, "This is not online teaching. This is emergency remote learning." He was like, "There's a difference in if this was an online setting,
right,
where you have planned for this, you have planned out your online lessons,
yep,
you have had the time to do this. This is an emergency. An ER works totally different than every other hospital bed in that room, because the ER is taking it in right then. They got to get you triage, their
right,
ABCs or whatever, before you can settle in and they can really look at your stats. They can look at how you are medically." He was like, "We are in an ER right now."
I love that.
I had to remind myself of that and think about, okay, well, if this is an ER, what are the emergencies? What are the emergencies for my program and for my music to continue, but also the emergencies for my students to be okay and my students to feel supported. And so I don't know, I really struggle with that. And I talked with Nini about that a lot, because I was like, everybody's doing all these things for their online learning, and I feel like I'm grasping at straws, and I'm not on top of this, and I'm not on top of that. And I told him what I was doing, and he was like, "Oh, well, that's great. Like you're checking in on your." He was like, "Wait, the only reason you're using Zoom is to do a lunch meeting with your kids every day?" I wasn't even doing like Zoom lessons, and I was like, "Yeah, and I know like everybody else is doing that." He was like, "That's everybody else." And I was like, "I know, but shouldn't I be?" And it took me that kind of time to be like, "No, like my situation is my situation. My ER does not look like your ER, and that is okay. I got to get these children to May, to graduation, or whatever it is. Like, now that I have the time, we can move to more online learning to get ready for the fall." But I think, I don't know, I really wanted, like, I don't know, I always felt like, I was singing all these things, and I was like, I'm not holding up. But I think that's okay. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely. We're all making it up the best we can, and that, but we go through that imposter syndrome cycle when the entire thing has completely changed. I love that you brought up the fact that it's triage teaching, because I've thought about that so much. I made the COVID course like as a free resource, and I struggle with that. Like, I keep getting people that are still joining it. Like almost every day someone new has joined it, and I want to be like, but don't plan like that for the future. I need to come out with an updated thing, because the COVID course that we did was straight up triage teaching, and I don't think that's going to be the case for the future, and we need to think about that. And like, while yes, that was, I've also said too, like, that was a dress rehearsal for the future. Now we have to take some of the things that we learned there, but also know that that way is not going to be exactly like we need to implement it in the fall / the future. So Nini, how did you step back, and how were you able to be like, dude, slow your roll? You're doing it. Like, what kept you in that peace-centered mindset? Besides, that's probably how you operate on some level too.
Oh, before I get on that, just a disclaimer about the PD. I did complete all my PD. I was thinking about CEUs for the first year. We don't have to do that, so just say, just in case if anyone else is listening.
Let the record show I got my ish in order.
I love it.
For me, when COVID started, I was in the midst of preparing my group for
festival,
MPA. This was the first time that this school was going to MPA, because the previous teacher didn't believe in taking them to MPA. So I was very excited. I was used to it, and I was working really hard with them. And so when this all started, I thought it was just only going to be like a month or two. I'm like, okay, no worries,
Yeah.
So I had to quickly think about, okay, what do I want to do next? So how do I keep them singing while they're still at home online? I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So, for like the first week, it was a lot of learning, like, okay, my district, we use Canvas. I was kind of used to Canvas as a student at Wingate, but now I'm on the other side, so I had to learn completely everything new.
Which is way harder.
Right. But thank God they did webinars every day. I was like, okay, those are very helpful. And I'm not gonna lie, I did not have a plan like, what do I want to do with online learning? So for me, if you're not a part of like the Facebook, like choral teacher, choir directors, you need to be a part of them, because those things helped me a lot. Because I was looking at people like what they're doing, taking their idea and changing stuff and implementing in my class. So I talked to so I kept my eye on those pages a lot, and also I talked to like people like Ashton from Croatan Choir, and also the lady in Virginia, Sing in the Middle. Yeah, so those people, they've helped me a lot. I was taking screenshot of what they're doing.
Right.
At first, I'm not gonna lie, I was doing a lot. All the teachers at my school, everybody was doing a lot. We were just like boom,
Right.
And then we started to notice that the kids are not doing the work at all.
Right.
By halfway through, okay, I started rethinking like, okay, I need to make them, the assignment shorter, keep it between 10, 15 minutes, and making sure that they are still getting what they need, what they need, and while, making sure that they're still turning them in. So, I will, I try, singing, but it was very hard for middle school. I'll sign an assignment like, okay, sing the major scale, and record it and, send it to me. And, I've used also Sight Reading Factory a lot.
Which, can we talk about that real quick though? Yes. So I get real passionate about this, right? Like, and could all of your kids successfully sing a major scale by themselves?
Yeah, they can.
Heck yes. Now, it was at the end of the school year, but like literally that is such an amazing thing to do at the beginning of the school year and at the end. Like, it doesn't have to be hard. And I think we sometimes try to make it harder than it needs to be. And it could literally just be like, can you sing a major scale?
Right.
If you can make a TikTok, you can film yourself doing a major scale.
Right. Along with that, we did Zoom meetings. I wanted them to get a chance to not only talk to them, their friends, but, at the same time, reviewing a lot of stuff, just making sure that it was still fresh in their mind. I was like, okay, do y'all remember this? Side note, sorry, this is just me being extra, but I contacted one of the composer. I was able to get in touch with Elaine Hagenberg in my 6th grade chorus. We were doing a piece by her, The Tiger, and we didn't get to perform it, but I was like, hey, can you do a Zoom? She's like, yeah, sure. And so, my little 6th graders, they got to talk with her. It was really cool. Yeah, and then I was doing a lot more of like, by halfway, through COVID, students were getting tired, so I started checking in with them a lot more. I was sending them emails every day. I was contacting their parents, making sure that they were doing their work, and making sure that if they needed anything, like I was there for them, and just making sure that they know that it's okay if they don't turn in everything. Just making sure that as long as you're doing some type of work, I'm okay with that. Yeah, and I got to explore other parts of music. I had a video on for like music history. How pianos are made. All those different little things that you wouldn't get to talk as much or teach as much in class.
I love that. I think it's just opened us up to so many other opportunities.
Right.
I could talk about why I think this is one of the best things possible for music education right now, but that's a whole other like trilogy in and of itself. But I love you know, the vulnerability that you guys shared within that and the process as well as the other resources of the Instagram community, you know, Nini, that you were talking about, Lamar. I'm so grateful that the teaching membership was helpful, and I'm really excited, just like, I mean, as a plug, because I believe in it so much. I'm so excited to bring I have like a whole stack of stuff that I'm about to upload and like make videos for people that you can use in the future and to help with some of that stuff, because I think we have such an opportunity to have students embrace individual musicianship during this time, as different as it does look. So what yeah, go.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think, I mean, I kind of talked about it, but we also, I mean, me and Nini are like really close, and so we also had each other, and that I felt like we are, as far as our teaching processes, because we're so different. I am very type B, he's very type A. You know, we look at things on two different sides of things, and so it's great when I can be like, this is what I'm thinking about, and hear what he has to say, and it sort of moves us both kind of this way, you know. In terms of, I was doing a lot less, he was doing a lot more, and we slowly sort of like worked through that to get, you know, to a middle ground. And I think I wanted to say this when you asked about our college professors too. I love them, and I listen to them intently. Like when I tell you that Dr. Kenny Potter is like my mentor, if I could just sit in his choirs and just take notes all day, I would. But I really feel like during my first year, I did not talk to him a lot. I was talking to people like Stephanie Madsen, my cooperating teacher from high school, Aaron Lafreniere, my cooperating teacher from middle school, you, Nini, AJ, people who are in this age group and going through the same things, especially somebody like Nini and another first year teacher that was teaching high school. Just because, I don't know, it required such, I don't know, it's not really a job that you can do alone the first year. And if you try to, you're going to fail. I think that's my biggest thing with your first year. That if you try to do this alone, you're going to fail.
Yeah. And that's where I love Choir Baton as an opportunity for people to ask if they need help and connecting with people, because you both are so fortunate in having great cooperating teachers and great people around you, but then also being aware that there are not always people around for you to ask for help. And, you know, and Nini was even talking about utilizing the Facebook groups, which can be a rabbit hole for some people. You can't let yourself go down that rabbit hole, but also like what an opportunity to learn and to ask for help in whatever way works for you to ask for help.
So for the love of all things holy and true, ask. You got the degree, that don't mean you know everything. You have to ask. Like, it's so vital. It's so vital.
But I do think it's hard sometimes though when you just don't even know what the question to ask, right? And so, I mean, I have that so much too, even in switching industries and like straddling the things, is that, you know, where do I start? You don't know what you don't know. And that's another point where you just start listening. And when you start, people always want to tell you their story. You just have to listen.
I know this is kind of about choir, but I imagine for your caveat in terms of a master's, it's kind of, I don't know, did it feel more, I don't know, lesser than to ask, because like, I'm not the one who studied business in my undergrad, so I had to ask the questions all the time. Like, did you have that feeling of insecurity about asking too?
I had, because I didn't know what everyone else knew, what was assumed. And I have that currently in my internship too, right? Like what is assumed common knowledge and then what is not. And I'm more comfortable in asking questions than if I'd gone even 2 years ago into the program, because I am more confident in myself and I know what I want out of it. And so because I know what I want out of it, I'm willing to sacrifice my dignity in a sense. But I've also learned that there are people beside you that have the same question too, that they're very glad that you've asked. Now, but then I also encountered some people that I was like, okay, this is common sense. Like you do need to know this. And that was also an interesting balance as well. But
so to me,
yeah.
like that's kind of like, I guess, a great first step in the idea of you got to know what you want out of it. Like what do I see? What is the goal, short term and long term, in terms of me not just asking this question, but like if I'm planning a field trip, what is my goal? To get all 3 classes. Great. That can influence my question to the financial secretary about how this is. You know what I mean? So it's like I feel like, again, you're waiting and you're walking through fire, but you're seeing something, and that's what you're going to.
It comes down to what's your why.
What's your why? Amen.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's something too, like, yeah, I mean, okay. Woo! Yes. Amen. I'm going to start running circles, waving a hanky. Like, that's something I'm honestly talking about right now with the teaching membership is I think that more than ever, it is so important for us to know our why personally and professionally and see how and where they can meet in the middle, especially as we look to online learning. And that is the thing too. So many people, I got so stinking tired of people being like, oh, this isn't choir. Like, what's your, you know,
Also, can we talk about the love-hate relationship, the roller coaster ride that every choir teacher has had with virtual choir? Because it started as a thing everybody wanted to know about, and then we hated it for so long, and now slowly everybody's back on. It's like change is so hard that we have to go through this roller coaster of emotions about it. It's like, okay, we're changing, so let's go. And then it's like, I hate change. We're just going to wait for everything to be fine. And then it's like, oh, here we go again. Okay, I guess I have to. So let's try out virtual choir again. It's so funny to me. But I mean, and it's understandable.
No, I think it's people. I think it's a couple leading people were really loud about how they didn't like it. And people listened to those people instead of sitting back and thinking and being like, no, it's still a way. Sorry, I'm very passionate about this. Still, it's a way for you to make music. And they jumped on the train with those people. And then when those people realized that they could do something off of that and that it was like their way or the highway, then they started changing. And then everybody else started changing with them. I think it's that stupid groupthink mentality that our industry has.
And not just our mentality. Change is a game of followers. I've always believed that. Change is a game of followers. They're going to follow the leading voices always, and whatever those leading voices want. And sometimes it's good. Like the change, I mean, we're recording this in the middle of June. We just had Juneteenth. Sometimes the change is good. And the following, like the fact that there are so many followers to change is a good thing. But sometimes in the virtual choir sense of things, it's not.
Yeah, totally. Well, we don't have to speak on this if you don't want to, but I also do want to open this up if you do want to talk to this as 2 new teachers and teachers of color of that. Do you have anything you want to share? And again, if you don't, we can keep it overarching and basic, but I do want to give you the opportunity if there's any thoughts you'd like to share. Nini?
Go for it.
Well, okay. I mean,
you don't have to, totally, but I do, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, if you want to talk about it, hey, we can talk about it. If you don't want to talk about it right now, hey, we don't want to talk about it right now.
No, well, I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's why I do it. Like, it's like I mean, we all have heard this, that there's less than 3% of teachers are African-American males. 3%, less than 3% are African-American males. And that makes up such a bigger part of the students that we teach. And so it's my passion. I'm only in my first year, but when I do where I see myself as someone who's there for students of color, some type of way, some sort of supportive way. And I personally found all that has happened, because we're in the middle of the George Floyd riots and all the justice that is happening in the streets. I have always, it's so interesting going to a school at Wingate, which is a private, formerly Baptist institution.
Which it's a PWC, right?
Yes, predominantly white college, yes.
Yes, which again, say that again. I just learned that word a year ago, and I've only really attended PWCs, which is a part of the problem. So predominantly white college.
Right. So you'll either hear PWC or PWI, predominantly white institution, which then opens it up sometimes past colleges. So yeah, it's a PWI, and that's where I've been for my whole teaching career, in that idea of honestly, and I'm just gonna be honest, helping people forget my color, helping people forget that I'm black. I guess I'm another chorus teacher, you know. And for a while, and it takes time to understand how no, being a Black male chorus teacher is just as important. But I think as a society, you know, the whole idea is to try and be colorblind with things, and the idea of, oh, I don't see color, and oh, you know, you're just great at your job, you're just great at teaching these students, that's great. When we all know that's not how it works. And I feel like I honestly, I was watching a movie. I'm sorry, I'm all over the place. I was watching a movie, and it was called Front of the Class, and it's about this teacher, but he had Tourette syndrome. And I think I talked about this in the first episode. And she said, his sister said he really wanted to be an elementary school teacher, but nobody was giving him a job because he had tics and he had outbursts with Tourette's. And they're like, you won't work in the elementary school setting. And she was like, you're going to be great wherever you land. You're going to land where you're supposed to. And she was like, it's not in spite of your Tourette's, it's because of it. And I was like, I don't want to be a teacher that's great at his job in spite of being Black, oh, who just happens to be Black. I want to be great at my job because I'm Black, because of what I come from, because of my culture, and because of the students that I can reach. And not just the students of color, but bringing my background and my culture to students that are white, and students that are Hispanic, and students that are LGBT, and students that fit into all of these different cultures, students that come that are from Asian American families. Because I think that it's the idea of celebrating each other. And that's what we get in the choir for, because there's so many arrays of people. My theater class is so diverse and array. I remember I was getting observed in it, and he was like, I did not expect John Boy, who lives in this country part of town, to be sitting there and doing a lesson laughing with, you know, Keisha from this part of town. Not to use the racist names. I mean, I have Karens and I have Keishas, but at the end of the day, like, they're working
together. It's real.
Together.
It's real life. Yeah.
It's so real. And so I'm gonna get off my soapbox, but
actually, can I bring you back on your soapbox about that for 2 seconds? And
absolutely.
Nini, I also have other. I'm okay.
No worries.
So I'm coming for you. Don't think that I'm not coming for you. So, because I also have to potentially apologize about something. This is my question to Lamar. You are in a rural school, right? Do you feel like in education today, we only talk about, particularly even like choral music ed, whenever we talk about students of color, and in particular Black students, we always refer to it as urban, and we never acknowledge the students of color that are in rural settings. Like sometimes we only talk about students of color that are in big cities, or we just use urban as a blanket statement, and we negate talking about in small towns in America, particularly in small towns in the South. That's like an unspoken conversation as well, because it's different in my opinion. Do you think it's different? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Tell me all things.
No, I agree. I think anywhere you go, there's going to be a majority, and that majority will typically determine how the rest of the world views said city or said institution. I went to a PWI for college, predominantly white school, but there were X percent of Black students. There were X percent of Hispanic students. And the thing about Wingate is there are a lot of international students, because we have such a thriving sports program. Students from Spain, students from Germany, students from Italy, students from everywhere. Like it was, for me, I feel like I'm at an international school with how many people from overseas that are in this building right now. But it is a predominantly white institution. So when people think Wingate, they think white. If you're at a school that is labeled as urban, you think they have a lot of Black students. but they have this percentage of students that are white, this percentage of students that are Hispanic. So anywhere you go,
But
there's
even
going to be a
like in your
majority.
classroom, not even university settings, like, but even like public school settings.
Oh, that's yeah. If it's
Okay.
an urban public school setting, you know, you're thinking to yourself, oh, well, it's in an inner city maybe, and so there's a lot of Black students, a lot of Hispanic students. So then my whites are my minority. So when you talk about that school, you talk about how they help Black students, forgetting how they help white students. It's the same if you flip the script. Like if I'm at a rural school, they think rural, just being honest, rural country white. Forgetting how many I like to say I'm a country Black folk. I am CBF all the way, country Black folk. And that is sometimes forgotten when you talk about, if I was the superintendent talking about, which she doesn't, I really love my superintendent. When she talks about West Berlin High School, she could say things like, oh, well, they're doing a great job getting our farmers into the forgetting that only 20% of that school is farmers, and forgetting that almost over half of that school is not white. You know what I mean? And so there's always a minority that gets forgotten about, and a minority that does not truly get heard in any of those situations. And I feel like in chorus, I really do feel this way. There's such a feeling of a melting pot that any chorus I walk into, I'm another voice, and we're all just voices. And for a while, at a certain level, that's beautiful. It's the idea that I can step into something bigger than myself and be a part of an organization that's about my voice and about us being voices together as one. And, you know, nobody's being Black or brown or white makes a difference. We're all singing. At a certain level, that's beautiful. But when you take it to the next level down, there needs to be a celebration of different cultures and just different backgrounds that I can celebrate through music, but I can also celebrate in terms of I see you and I see where you're coming from, and I am giving you validity for all of it. You know, I as Beth, as Nini, as Lamar, two very different people. If you were to like look at us in a room, you're like, whoa, like very different people. But there's a difference in being three people who just happen to be doing the same, so our differences don't really matter, and a difference in our differences are celebrated because they make us so unique and they make us who we are and give us the fact that it's our voice. You know, but my voice is enough. It's singular for a reason. It's not the idea of all of your voices are so great when they come together. No, it's the fact that no, boo. You have to find that your voice is enough and your voice matters. And that's my goal as a teacher.
So that's like a perfect then lead into my potential apology, because I don't actually know Tini as well.
It's okay. I don't even know, to be honest. I struggle like all my life because, you know, I was born and raised in Burma, you know, until about age 10, you know, where, you know, everybody looked like me, you know, as a kid when I was growing up, you know, everybody was Asian, you know. That was the only race that I knew, you know. And then coming to America, you know, I remember seeing the first white person, first Black person. I was like, wow, you know, there's a lot more colors, you know, of different races in the world. And, you know, in school, you know, I never fit in, you know, not, you know, not just because of my race, but things like I felt like I always had to, you know, present myself as quote unquote white, because, you know, that's what everyone's, you know, in my mind, you know, coming from Burma, you know, that's what, you know, people wants to be, you know, over there, people want to be like white people, you know, what they do in terms of how they act, you know, like, you know, white was the you know, the superiority, you know, that's, you know, for, you know, elementary, middle, and high school, you know, I try dressing like a white person, you know, I try, you know, eating white people's food, and, you know, I try all these different things, but at the end of the day, I'm like, you know, that is not me, you know, that is not me, for a certain amount of period, I hated my name because, for other people, it was very hard to pronounce.
Right.
And how do I hate when people ask me how to pronounce my name. I went through that, trying to be white. But then, as I, grew older, I got more comfortable with myself. And, I told myself that, it's okay to be different. It's okay to be Asian. It's okay to have a name like Nini. That's unique about you, and that's your advantage, over other people.
Because you were saying you hated your name.
My name, everything. When I was in school, I always tried to hang out with, other color people. The closest color to me is like Hispanic. If I can't find Hispanic people, then the Black people. Those are where I'm more comfortable with. Just in terms of hanging out with them and just talking to them. And going to Wingate, especially first year, there were only a few color students in the department. That was very hard for me. But as we were about to graduate, I was very pleased with that. I don't know if it's a university or Potter, but I was happy to see a lot more color and more diversity, in the program. As a teacher, being an Asian and the only Asian teacher in the building, it's really hard. Even trying to talk to anyone or both students and my colleagues. It's just something like I just have to. If they have a question, I have to be mindful that I can't get mad at them. Explain it to them. If they have questions or if they have.
What are some of their questions?
Take that time to really, explain that instead of just being like, oh, like you don't know about this,
Like your friend that's known you for years and can't remember that you're from Burma because, like me.
So I have to I love that now. Whenever people ask me about my culture or about how what you're thinking or how do you do this, like I love it to talk about it more and more every day. But I am glad I do have I'm very happy that I have several Asian students in choir. And, I love them, I love talking to them and, I love talking about boba tea and, this and that and all that to them. And, I hope that, I give them, an inspiration that, like, it's okay to not be a doctor. It's okay not to be a lawyer, it's okay, to teach music and it's okay, to be other different things besides, what your parents tells you to do. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that and it reminds me of the episode I have with Shreyas. I don't know if you've listened to it, but being Indian, that he felt that an extreme pressure as well, and has kind of like walked many lines of where to go with that. Yeah. I have a million other questions, but then also I want to be respectful of time, but then also of just learning as well. And I think there's a lot of clearly there's so many resources for teachers and particularly choir teachers to begin to go after understanding how to inform themselves about our own prejudice, bias, microaggressions, not macroaggressions, I guess is the opposite of that too. Particularly as it pertains to white and Black culture and races and those differences. And I'm not trying to equate that it's different between Asian and white, but it also is different in some ways as well, I would just assume. What tips do you have, or would you be willing to share tips with listeners about how they can familiarize themselves to be better allies for their Asian students and understanding culture and being a better ally for them?
Well, I just want to say, for Asian people, everybody's not Chinese, not, Japanese, within the Asian community, we have a lot of, light skins and dark skin. I'm a dark skinned Asian, and there's so many different types of Asians, I would love it, like if you're
I didn't know he
not
was a dark
sure.
skinned Asian.
I didn't know that either. I'm glad
I
you
didn't
said
know.
that.
I just relearning right now. Like I've been friends with this boy for 4 years. I did not know he was a dark skinned Asian.
Interesting.
If you don't know, ask them before you start guessing. When people see me, they're like, "Are you Filipino? Are you Hawaiian?" I mean, which is fine, okay, but like, you're like, "Oh, I'm from Burma." They're like, "What?" Like, if you're not sure, ask them. Don't stereotype them.
Now, wait, is it like, where are you from? Where are you from? Or like, hey, would you mind sharing me what part of your, like, I know this sounds basic. It is basic, right? But like for a lot of people, this might be a question they don't know how to ask.
Well, I mean, for me, like, if you ask me, like, "Hey, what kind of Asian are you?" I think that would be fine. I will not, be offended by that.
I would have never guessed. Okay, cool. Good to know. What kind of Asian are you?
Yeah, just be like, "Oh, what's your nationality?" That's, I feel, if you want to be a little bit more safer. But yeah, if you don't know, ask. And just know that, like, not all Asian people eat rice. All that other stuff too. Don't make assumptions. Just my biggest thing is, if you don't know, just ask. For Asian people. I also wish that, in the choral community, that I wish that, there was more, Asian choral literature. I don't even know if that's the right term. I feel like some country, like, let's say Korea, South Korea, they have a very thriving, Asian community there. But, I wish that there was, like, when I go to concert, I wish that I wanted to see more, non-Western music. It doesn't have to be particularly Asian music, but, it would be great if you can, put more Asian literature in your program. But, just more reaching out, more than just your regular, dead white people,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm even thinking, I know a very few Asian choral conductors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And actually, the majority of them are women.
Right.
Yeah.
When I say majority, actually, majority of them. Majority being like less than 5. That I'm not saying there's like 20 of them. I'm like, but I think that's super interesting as well. I have one last question. We have been talking for an hour over. Again, I could literally just talk to you both. But what is something that you really feel like there's no way you could have learned it until you actually were in it this first year? That there's no way anyone can prepare you until you're literally walking through that fire. Nini, you got it?
Yeah, I have several. Is that okay?
Go for it. Yeah, please.
Our professors, Dr. Wolf and Dr. Parr, they always talk about, you're going to have all this paperwork, teams only this, and, there's a lot more paperwork that, I did not realize that, until I took my kids, for a field trip. I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is like a packet, and all those, stuff behind the scene, like, it was, that's something I felt like, you just have to be there, to learn the process and to fully get that experience. Another thing, working with younger voices, unchanged/change voices. When we were in our methods classes, we had our peers singing, parts, like cambiata parts, baritone parts, but those are not the same.
Right.
That is something that you have to learn. Being there, present in front of your student. Another thing I feel like I was not ready for was working with booster. I was lucky enough to step into a program that has a booster program. Like I had no idea. Like even though I was not running it, like just to be familiar with it, I had zero information on booster. And I was like, oh, like what kind of fun? Like how do you find money? Those sorts of things. I had like, I'm sorry. I had to, contact a lot, my friends to get those information. So
yeah, huge. Cool. Lamar?
I think for me, one of the big things was, I feel like there are a lot of things. And there are so many things where it's like you did a day or two in classes, in like your university classes on it. Like, we're talking about voicing today for today and Wednesday. We're talking about boosters for today and Tuesday, and write a little reflection. And it's like, okay, we never really got deep into topics about things. But one thing that I think can't really be brought up, or that how to bring up, is the idea of working through emergency. Because I don't care how planned you are, things are gonna happen. And for me, I think day of concert is one of the hardest things for me to even think about, because when I tell you, you are the most important person on the earth, and all 600 people, even if you have 30 people in your choir, all 600 people involved in the process, know you are the most important person, because you're going to have the principal calling you about what time you need to open the gym. You're going to have the janitor wanting to know when he can sweep the floor after the concert. You're going to have the financial secretary wanting to know where to leave the box. You're going to have this person, this student who needs this thing, who forgot this thing, like all of that. And I think one of the things I learned is my stress level is really created the week of, and then I'm sort of in it / out of it kind of void on the day of concert. And so things are pretty much mayhem. Well, my first concert, the day of concerts were mayhem. Like this mayhem, things going all over the place. I remember I sat them down and warmed them up, and they were like, "You need to be on stage 2 minutes ago." I was like, "What?" And then I'm like, "All right, get in your orders. You get here. Oh my God!" And hello, everyone. Welcome to the evening, to the night. And it's like so much, like so many almost strokes before the concert. And I think understanding how to manage that in a concert or in a field trip is really hard for anybody really to prepare you for until you're in it.
It gives you a whole new sense of appreciation for all the concerts that you've sung in up until that point.
Right. And I mean, there are millions of other things. I think I got lucky and I got great principals. But there are times where you and the principals aren't going to jive, and you and the principals aren't going to, work well together. And I think I struggled with understanding until I was in it how to be heard, but not be. I don't know. I mean, Beth and you know me, but like I'm a person to where I have an opinion, and I'm going to share that opinion, good or bad, in a sometimes if it's warranted, in a not so appropriate way, and I it's a problem. We're working on it. But yeah, I think dealing with teachers and principals and parents is something that's actually harder than can be expressed in a classroom.
Hands down. Now, question, do you feel, because we've talked a little bit about like some of your conversations that you've had with admin, do you feel like you are potentially maybe heard differently as a male as opposed to a female teacher?
Absolutely. In the sense that it's harder to dismiss me. One and I've always said this, is that I feel like it's a voice thing. It's harder to dismiss the person who can be the loudest in the room. I can be the loudest in the room, and there are a lot of women teachers who can be loud in the room as well. But as a man, it is much easier for me to be louder, and that in itself requires you to listen more.
With a pitch also. I mean, it's a pitch thing.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's for students and it's for principals and it's for other teachers. I also believe that what makes it easier to dismiss me is age. When they understand that I'm 22 years old and I am, in my first year, it's easy to say, oh, well, when you've been in this longer, you'll see that this is how this goes. And no, boo, that's not why I'm here. I'm here to tell you what's happening and how we need to fix it now. I mean, and I don't mind telling the story. I had a moment where there was an altercation with LGBT students and Hispanic students. And a lot of the LGBT students are my students. And there was
Can I ask a question too? Was it just because we're differentiating between race and sexuality? Was it or was it really that disparate, or was there also a race thing in there as well?
The altercation was over race and sexuality.
Oh, together.
So,
okay.
Well, that's what the argument between these students was about, was the race and sexuality.
That's right. I remember. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I remember my students being called out, and one came back and was like, oh, we're being sent home. And knowing the altercation, I just had a few things that I wanted to talk to principals about, specifically about the fact that they were calling parents, and there were parents that did not know that some of these students identified as queer. And I was like, you can't just call and tell them that they were walking around with a pride flag when they're, and so that was a big thing for me, walk in the room and immediately dismissed for my age, basically. And so that's when Mr. Davis turned not so friendly, and got very, I don't know, I don't think I was disrespectful in it, because I'm very good at still speaking professionally, but with a more aggressive tone. Don't do that to your principals and assistant principals. It's not really good. But I keep saying to myself, I probably wouldn't have done it differently, just because I needed to be heard and not dismissed. And so sometimes, like we're seeing in the streets right now, you have to get loud and disrespectful to be heard. But yeah, dealing with, bottom line, soapbox over, dealing with people is hard.
Yeah, no, I get it. And just to clarity, it was students that were inside of your classroom and students outside of your classroom too, right? Correct. That was like the bigger divider, and then it was the LGBTQ and sexuality and race thing. Because I remembered as soon as we started talking, but I don't think if anyone understood that caveat, they would be like, wait a second, okay. So that makes total sense. And I also think, though, I mean, is loud always being disrespectful? Yes, no, maybe. I have always been told that being loud is disrespectful. And at the end of the day, I am not quiet. So
at the end of the day, I have so much respect for. I love my principals; they are great. I really feel like I got lucky in that sense. And when I got called back to the office to talk about what happened, I told them, I was like, I warned you when you hired me that I'm a direct communicator. Sometimes being direct means not having the conversations that we want to have. But I am somebody who does not mind sitting down, talking to you about race, the flag, the Constitution, whatever you want to bring up, let's go. Like that, if that's what needs to happen for, again, my goal, or what I envision happening out of like why I'm asking, I will have the conversation if it needs to be had. Sometimes we're not going to like it. I'm still going to love you regardless, but as a principal and as a teacher or as a student. But if this is the conversation that needs to be had, let's sit down and get through it instead of avoiding the awkward or avoiding what the real conversation, because sometimes things aren't always going to happen, or your goals aren't always going to be reached the respectful way. Sometimes you've got it's like family. Like, you got to get ugly sometimes, and that's okay. I'm okay with it because I can move on and love you to the death.
But there's a lot of people that can't. I'm the same way, right? Like, let's bring it. I can go and I can tell you, you are making me so mad and still love you. But I struggle with that in my own family. My family, my 3 family members in my core family do not operate that way. And it is hard. It's hard. It's hard. It's hard. Anyways, that's again for my non-choral music podcast. More on that. Nini, tell us about what are some of the things that, like, there's no way I could have learned this, but I needed to learn it. It taught me walking through the fire.
For me, I was like very similar to Lamar. I was the youngest teacher at that school. Everyone was like my parents' age, or they have families, and they have kids, and they have this and that, and I feel like all of them have their stuff together, and I'm just like I felt very afraid to approach to them, because being the young one, being the first year, it was hard for me to to talk to some of them. And so, like, for like the first 2 months, like, I did not leave my room. I ate lunch in my room.
Right.
I was that person. I was like, But eventually, over time, a lot of the teachers, they were like, oh, we want to know about you, like, especially like my encore family. Like, there's this teacher, her name is Miss Smith, and she teach CTE. And she's like, yeah, come eat lunch with us. Yeah, all of the encore teacher we eat, in the workroom. Like, come on, she's like a mother to me, and I started going to their lunches. Even if I'm not a very social person, shockingly.
That I relate to you
even
with.
like if I'm eating my lunch. I'll just sit there and just listen to them. That just gets me out of the room, and that just gets me, like a little break from the day. And my biggest thing is don't be afraid to reach out to your colleagues. Even if they are older, or even if they don't choose the same subject as you. And know that being a first year teacher, they, like, I feel like my admin, like, they fully supported me, whatever I did, and don't be afraid that if you were to change some things, do it. Don't feel like you're stuck there because of like the previous teacher did something, or he did it in a certain way. Do what is right, and everything will work out. But yeah, just be true to yourself, and if you're struggling, ask for help. If you're afraid to ask questions, maybe go to the teacher that you trust the most, and ask those questions. If you don't know how to ask them, tell them your story, and just get there, and and yeah, everything will be fine.
I love that. I love that. Well, you guys, it's time to say goodbye for right now. And I just want to say how appreciative I am of the two of you and your friendship, but more than anything, like, your vulnerability within this has meant so much to me. And I have no doubt we will never fully know the people that you have touched by your willingness to share. So thank you.
Thank you, Beth.
Yeah. This would not be, like, literally episode 2, right? Like, you guys, this would not be possible without you, but exactly for what you said, right? Like, we have to reach out, we have to communicate with each other. And that was my goal in Choir Baton, right? Like that is, I felt so isolated and so alone. And especially when I was also, we talk about it in the context in this episode of being a first year teacher, but when I moved back to North Carolina, I was so alone and so isolated. And all of my choir friends were really in like Arizona and some in Tennessee, but I didn't have any new ones here. I had a couple here, the plastics, et cetera, it just can make it hard to be integrated. So I think it's such an important message that you're sharing. And then also your friendship with me has helped me not feel so alone in this state as well. And I'll be forever grateful. Yeah.
I'm glad. I'm really glad that you did this. I am.
Right.
It's been great.
Yeah. Well, this is only just the beginning. I do think, I'm going to have to continue this idea, maybe with another set. Maybe we'll check in like once a year with you guys. And this will just be like the chronological journey of you guys as teachers. I think that it's so special. And also thank you both for sharing about your, what's the word I'm looking for? Just sharing also about what it means to bring your whole self to this being Burmese and Black, and what that means as being a teacher. I wish, like, what an amazing coincidence, I guess you could say, that it also worked out. But I think once we've always started talking about this, the different perspectives the three of us have and bring to this conversation, both recorded for Choir Baton and then also just in real life, is something else I cherish about the three of us and our other friends too. It's not like, yeah. Cool. Well, if people want to find you, they can reach out to you on the gram, right?
On the gram, yep.
Cool.
I'm at Trevor Lamar Davis.
And I'm at ny.ong, A-U-N-G.
What does the A-U-N-G stand for?
His middle name.
Oh, that's my middle name.
Oh, come on! Like, I couldn't remember Marie's. There's no way I would remember his middle name. I feel really bad. Give me a break.
I feel like you asked that. I feel like you asked that same question in the first episode. What is that on? And we were like, his middle name.
Clearly, I should have listened to our first episode again. So if you want to find a way to make fun of me like these guys are, yeah.
Love you.
I love you guys. Thanks again. And we'll just be seeing what the fall holds for all of us and where we go from there. I so hope that you enjoyed that episode as much as I did. I finally had to reach a point where I was like, all right, guys, we got to get off here. We have been talking for forever and we could continue to talk for forever. I encourage you to engage with Nini and Lamar, particularly if you are a new teacher or a student that is going to be a new teacher in the future. I just think that there is strength in connecting with teachers that are in similar places in their careers as you are. I wish I had had that as a first, second, and third year teacher, and I'm grateful to be a part of this online community of teachers now, even though I'm a little bit later on in my career. I just want to remind you to make sure that you have signed up for the Choir Baton email. Link is in the bio. You'll find out about the teaching course, the teaching membership, and the singer course. And if you know of someone that would be a good candidate for the singer course, you can sign them up to receive an introductory email for that as well if you receive the Choir Baton teaching membership email, or just the Choir Baton email, rather. I am really excited for next week's episode. Maria Ellis, aka Girl Conductor, is going to be joining us. Make sure you tune into that. If something from today's episode resonated with you, it's always encouraging for me and everyone involved in Choir Baton, including our guest Nini and Lamar, if you share that on social media, especially if there's a particular thing that stuck out to you or that you learned. I cannot express to you how important that is for us to continue to be able to grow as a Choir Baton community. Quite frankly, I struggle with sometimes not really looking at the numbers, not wanting to look at the numbers, because I don't judge the success of Choir Baton based off of how many listens or how many downloads or how many followers on this or how many followers on that. But I do use it as a comparative metric to understand what is working, what are people liking. I care most about the engagement that we have within this choir community, but whenever you share, it does have the opportunity for other people to be impacted by the message that we are trying to spread in Choir Baton, and that is the importance of more people singing. So while the numbers don't matter to a certain extent, they also do matter to a certain extent, because it means that more people have the opportunity to hear this message. And it's really not me shouting from the rooftops the importance of more people singing. It's really about you shouting from the rooftops the importance of more people singing, because your insight, your opinion, your influence means more to your community than mine ever does or could or should. So thank you for supporting the Choir Baton podcast through sharing with others. Thank you for listening, and let's get more people singing.